Hi, good morning. So in this video we're going to do another deck review, and this is actually on a deck that I've gotten since the start of this year. This is the Wicked Tarot deck. It is by Casey, where is it? Here we go. It is by Casey Gilly and Cynthia Alvarez. It's also by Inside Editions here. You know, the same company that made the Dune, Wednesday Addams deck, the Hocus Pocus deck, and even the Wizard of Oz deck. If you go there, I think they've made a whole bunch of decks over there. But I got this deck in very early January, and unfortunately that was the same day that I ended up getting into a very severe car accident. But this is the box here. This is the inside of the box. This is the guidebook. I mean, it's pretty standard for a guidebook here. But there's actually a little bit of something that I want to say. There's actually a lot that I want to say about this deck. So I'm going to try my best not to ramble as much and, you know, just give it to you straight. Because I believe that this deck is for a particular type of person here, or for a particular type of people, okay? But guidebook is pretty standard, okay? So I'm going to put this off to the side. Hopefully my robe does not catch on fire for these candles. Alright. This is the other inside of the box here. This is the back of the box. I'm going to put these over to the side because y'all don't really care about the box here. You just want to know about the cards. These are the backs of the cards. If you have this deck already, you might have actually seen this, okay? But these are the backs of the cards. And I managed to organize these cards. So these cards are in order from Major Arcana to Minor Arcana. Now I will tell you ahead of time that the Minor Arcana has been changed. So while it does follow a very similar structure to the RWS system, I can't say anything about the Thoth system, but I know it follows the RWS system. The names of each of the minor suits have been changed. So if I'm correct, and seriously, somebody correct me on this in the comments section. Yellow bricks represent swords or thoughts. Brooms represent wands. Flowers represent cups. And coins represent pentacles. Again, if I am mistaken, correct me in the description, correct me in the comments below, but I believe that is what I think those suits represent, okay? So a little flip through. So, I have been working with this deck for months now, and I mean months. I mean, I got it in early January, so that tells you how long I've actually had this deck. Which, by the way, this little cloth right here that you see underneath it, this is actually some sort of tarot silk cloth that I'm making for this deck. Isn't it adorable? I can't really show you the other side. Well, maybe I can. The other side of it is covered in gold. So, still got to finish it up. But isn't it cute? It's not the prettiest, but there we go. Anyway, I've been working with this deck for several months now. So, here's what I can tell you about it. If you are familiar with both movies, both Wicked and Wicked for Good, and if you have read the book or you just simply know the main synopsis behind the book, and you have a very good extensive knowledge of the RWS system, you will be able to use this deck. I would say that this deck is more of a novelty kind of deck. I mean, if you're a huge fan of Wicked and Wicked for Good, then you would definitely love this deck. But I would say this is more of a novelty kind of deck because, again, in my personal opinion, in my own personal experience, if you have a very extensive knowledge of the RWS system and you know about the two movies, Wicked and Wicked for Good, because these cards are based on both movies, and you know what happens in both movies, you will be able to use this deck effectively. Because of this deck, in my personal opinion, this deck is not meant for beginners. Okay? That's what I think. So, I'll give you an example here. The death card. This one for me is pretty straightforward. It may not be for you though, and it may not be for somebody who's just getting this deck. So let me pull these two, and let me pull this card out. And there is another card that I want to pull out. This one right here. 5 of yellow bricks. Okay? So let's just look at these two cards for a second before I resume the flip through. The death card. Oh, and by the way, if you have not seen both movies, there will be spoilers. Sorry. Okay? Sorry. But, death card. This is when Elphaba is defeated by Dorothy in Wicked for Good, when Dorothy throws the bucket of water on her, and supposedly Elphaba dies. However, it was revealed that she didn't actually die. It was all a trick. Okay? So, if you know about the death card in RWS system, death means the death of your old self, transformation, a rebirth. Okay? The death of your old self to change into your new self. In this case, if you put that along with what happened in Wicked for Good and what happened to Elphaba near the end of that movie, you can figure out exactly how this photo was picked for this card. So you got some cards like this that are very, very straightforward here, okay? Because the old Elphaba had to die the old Elphaba had to die, or had to pretend to die in Oz so she could leave and start over. So, with that being said, you understand completely what this card means, so you can figure out how to use it. And then you got cards like this, where when I first saw it, it didn't quite make sense to me. Because for starters, why are we just putting a pair of shoes here? But then it got me thinking about the 5 of Swords, okay? Because technically this is supposed to represent the 5 of Swords, since like I said earlier, yellow bricks represent swords in this case. At least I think they do. But 5 of Swords usually represents somebody trying to get one over on someone that is defeating or besting another person, and they're victorious, but it's at the cost of something, okay? The shoes. If you've seen the 2 movies, again, spoilers, the shoes in the second movie are kind of the main focus of Elphaba, and this after that she learned that Galinda ended up giving these shoes to Dorothy. Before, these shoes were on Nessa Rose, okay? And I believe Elphaba ended up enchanting the shoes with the Grimoire so Nessa Rose can move around and fly. Well, when Nessa Rose died, those shoes were meant to go to Elphaba. Instead, they were given to Dorothy. So, in this case, what I'm trying to say here is, since these shoes have a lot of power to them now because of Elphaba, whoever has these shoes is the victor, but it's at the cost of something. Nessa Rose ended up getting her shoes enchanted. However, it ended up costing her Bach. Again, correct me on this if I'm wrong, okay? When Nessa Rose died, those shoes were directly meant to go to Elphaba. So, in a way, I wish I'm trying to make sense of this. But you kind of get what I'm saying here, okay? Dorothy ended up getting these shoes, but it was at the cost of Nessa Rose's life, okay? So, what I'm trying to say here is that if you have a basic knowledge of the RWS system, and let me see here, if I can put this card back in the correct spot. But if you have a basic knowledge of the RWS system and the movies, it will be very easy for you to use this deck. Okay? So, yeah, let me just do this. Other than that, the messages that I get from this deck, sometimes they're straightforward. Other times, it takes me a minute. Because, like I said, this deck is not really for beginners. Like, for example, this Temperance card. If you know about the character Bach, then if you know about the character Bach and if you know about the Temperance card, this might be easy for you. However, I feel like on some of these cards, it's obvious that they didn't have a lot to work with. And they just kind of, I guess, phoned it in. I guess just put it in there because, hey, it's Wicked theme, so there's that. This is another card that I had a hard time working with here because the moon revealed secrets. But again, like I said, for the third time, and I feel like I'm a repeating record here. If you understand the RWS system and you understand what happens in both movies, you will understand that card. Okay? Other than that, the designs of the cards are beautiful. I have no complaints. I love the gold etching on the cards. And the readings that I get from these cards, sometimes they're straightforward. Other times, not so much. Like I have to really, really, really let my intuition fly. I can't just use my knowledge of the RWS system and the knowledge of the movies to just come up with a meaning. Because sometimes the meaning isn't as straightforward with this. I can't really explain to you the type of energy that I get from this deck here. Well, okay. In a way, it's kind of whimsical. But because it varies over time, I can't really describe to you the type of energy from this deck here. But the readings that you get from here, I won't say that they're very straightforward. Sometimes they are, but it depends entirely on what question you're asking before you flip these cards out, okay? So, yeah. Like, if you are asking for details about a certain situation, you might be able to get an answer out of these cards. I wish I had a good example of a question that you could ask for this deck, but my mind is a little bit muddled right now, so sorry. Other than that, the readings that you would get from here, I would strongly advise that if you do a reading with this deck, I don't think this is a deck that you can possibly use to read for other people, okay? This might be a deck that you can use to read for yourself. Now, if you do want to read for other people and they're not much of a fan of the traditional RWS system, then this might be a good deck to use. Like, this right here, this card. If you know about what happens to Bach in the movie, you would know why I was very confused why he was labeled as the King of Cups here, or the King of Flowers. Because once he's turned into this, he doesn't really act like you would expect a King of Cups to act like. Maybe this is just me. I don't know. But this is one of the cards where I thought, like, man, they were just kind of phoning it in and just kind of throwing it in. Okay? And I apologize if this review is all over the place, but that's pretty much how it was with my experience with this deck here, okay? This is another example of where it's pretty straightforward and easy to understand. Again, you have to know the character, you have to know the RWS system, okay? Other than that, the way that this deck was designed, I have no complaints about it. I love the gold etching. I love the design of each of the characters. This one was actually pretty sweet, okay? And just, I would say readings that you would do these readings for yourself first. Really, really bond with this deck first, okay? Even though I label it as a novelty kind of deck, you just got to bond with it. You just have to really, really work with it. And you really, really have to combine RWS, knowledge of the two movies, and your intuition in order to really get the message that's shown here. Okay? So, with all that being said, because I feel like I've repeated myself, this deck is not really for beginners. It's for people who absolutely love both Wicked movies. And just to tell you the truth, I have not seen either of the Wicked movies. I've only seen a few clips, and I've read the synopsis of both movies. I've even read the synopsis of the book. So that's how I know what's going on. Okay? So if you're a fan of Wicked, you'll like this deck. If you like novelty decks that are really, really pretty, and they can still be used for readings, this is a good deck. Okay? All in all, I think I'm going to hold on to this deck, okay? I think I'm going to really, really hold on to this deck because, first of all, it's pretty. And because I've literally bonded with it for so long, I can't seem to part from it. Goodness me, the only reason that I even got attracted to this deck was before I didn't even want anything to do with it. This one is actually quite dark, okay? To be honest, I didn't really want to bond with this deck in the first place, but it kept calling me. And I believe that this deck ended up calling me because I resonate very deeply with the character Elphaba. I resonate with her because I don't like injustice. I see things for how they really, really are. But sometimes it could be just you fighting against an entire army or fighting against an entire system by yourself. And it feels very lonely sometimes. And honestly, I can relate. Okay? Other than that, I don't think there's much more I want to say. I try to explain as much as I can when it comes to the use of this deck. But all in all, I have zero complaints. This is a deck that I will be using for a long time because, like I said, I've bonded with it. I literally am making a tarot silk wrap for this deck. So that tells you how deeply bonded I am with it, okay? So, yeah. If you are a fan of novelty decks, this is for you. If you like both Wicked movies, this is for you. If you like the Wicked novel that both movies are based off of, this is for you. If you just love to collect pretty novelty decks, this is for you. But I highly recommend that you just work with this deck, okay? Don't just use it once, and if it doesn't work for you once, don't just immediately dismiss it. You really, really got to bond with it. You really, really have to form a connection with it, okay? Other than that, there's not much more I want to say. I think it's a fantastic deck. This is probably the only deck I have from Inside Editions here. Inside Editions, because they have so much more. Some of those decks on there are hit and miss. So, yeah, that's all I want to say about this deck here. Hopefully the information that I spilled in this video was helpful to you on trying to understand how to use this deck. If you already have this deck and you've used it before, whether for doing readings by yourself or for doing it for other people, let me know how it worked for you in the comments below. If I was mistaken on anything, put it in the comments below, okay? Be respectful, all right? All right? I read comments all the time. Be respectful, okay? But, yeah, I have no complaints. I see myself using this deck for a long time. So, hopefully my review was very, very helpful to all of you. And I will see you in the next video, okay? So, oh, I totally forgot to mention. When this deck was first out, it was in Barnes & Noble stores. It's not there anymore for obvious reasons. But if you're lucky, you can find this in Books A Million stores. If there's a Books A Million store nearby, you might be able to find this deck. Otherwise, this is a deck you will have to order online, okay? Because I don't think you can find it locally anymore. It was everywhere when the whole Wicked craze was in full swing, okay? But that's what I wanted to tell you, okay? That's all I got to say about this deck. I hope y'all have a good day, and I hope this information in this video has been helpful in case you ever want to use this deck, all right? See y'all later. Peace.